Recently, I seen a YouTube comment where this person was saying that somebody had used one of these Sigma f1.4 lenses on a Lumix G9 and that it took away the dreaded pulse from the autofocus. Then that person suggested that it might solve the problem for the Panasonic G85 too. So I thought that was a good basis for a video. And today I'm going to put the Sigma 16mm f1.4 against the Lumix Leica f2.8 to f4 on the Panasonic Lumix G85. If you're new to the channel, my name is Mike Mandigo and this is Passion Video. Thanks for stopping in. So to keep things as fair as possible with these tests, I'll be setting the Lumix Leica to approximately 16mm on the zoom dial, then securing that with a piece of green painter's tape. Both lenses are going to be set to f3.2 to accommodate for the Lumix Leica's variable aperture, and I'll be using a Tiffin variable ND filter to help me accommodate for the light that's coming in and help me set the proper exposure. You got to admit that the G85 is a great budget camera. There's really only a couple downfalls to this camera. The first being the 8-bit footage, which isn't the greatest for pushing flexibility-wise with color grading. And then the second downfall is going to be the horrible contrast-based autofocus. It's notorious for pulsing at things in the background and losing focus when you're trying to track a subject. Typically, I set focus with my G85 using the tap to focus feature, and then I just try to maintain that distance. So the autofocus and the continuous autofocus settings with the Lumix G85 and these lenses hasn't really been something that I've tested out too thoroughly. So it's going to be a good opportunity to see how this test fares out. When I first read that comment, it made me wonder if I probably could get better autofocus with my G85 using the Sigma f1.4 on it. One of the thoughts I had was, why would the autofocus from the Sigma f1.4 be better than, say, the Lumix Leica, which is a native lens to the Panasonic G85? So that got me to do a bit of research. On Sigma's website, it said that this line of contemporary lenses was designed specifically for hybrid mirrorless cameras, and they also said they were designed to accommodate cameras with fast hybrid autofocus systems like Sony. So I guess the last sentence there kind of answers the question. Sigma recommends using the face and eye detection setting when filming people for the best results. So that's the autofocus setting that I use to perform my tests. I put the lenses through 3 sets of basic tests each. I did my best to try to replicate what I did in each test. One of the mistakes that I made was not having a specific routine of steps to follow and repeat. So I kind of just remembered what I did in the first video and tried to repeat that. So the actions and however long I did those actions for are a little bit more sporadic and random. What I'm going to be looking for in these tests and what I want you to keep an eye out for is any pulsing or fluttering on the objects in the background. This is particularly going to be more noticeable when I'm closer up to the screen, so keep an eye out for that during those times. I thought this Sigma did a far better job at racking the autofocus more smoothly and gradually, and this made it look more natural compared to the Lumix Leica, which was a little bit more punchy in my opinion. And what I mean by that is it was a lot faster and more obvious that it was autofocusing and looked less natural to the eye. The autofocus did a pretty decent job of holding the tracking and staying locked on during shots when I was facing the camera in tests 1 and 3. It did kind of lose tracking a little bit if I moved a little bit too sudden or if I was popping in and out of the frame. But for the most part, while I was facing the camera and not moving too fast, it did a great job of holding the tracking. For test 2, the lighting condition was different from 1 and 3. The sun was hitting my face more and there was less contrast. So because of this, both of these lenses had a harder time getting the autofocus to stay locked on, and anytime I moved too sudden, it would lose the autofocus and start hunting for things in the background or objects off to the side. Overall, the Sigma did do a better job at minimizing the pulsing compared to the Lumix Leica. And for that, it's going to come out the winner of this autofocus battle. Both lenses did a great job at holding the tracking on my face while large objects like transports and traffic were going in the background. So I thought that was pretty cool. There was pulsing and fluttering from both lenses during all three of the tests. Just it was a lot more noticeable with the Lumix Leica footage. To the untrained eye, the pulsing and fluttering during the Sigma shots might even go unnoticed. But for filmmakers like us, we're going to pick up small flaws like that, and that's particularly what this test was for. Let me know in the comments what you think about the performance from the Sigma f1.4 on the Panasonic G85. Did you think it lived up to the statement at the beginning of the video? Let me know your thoughts on this topic. So what can you do if you don't have one of these Sigma f1.4s and you want to get better autofocus performance from your G85? I got you covered. Here's a few tips that you could do right now to help improve the autofocus performance on your G85. The first is going to be to turn your autofocus sensitivity up to +2. The second is going to be to try to film in a decently lit environment, but being cautious not to have too much hitting the face, remembering my results from test 2. And then the third tip is going to be to use a wireless remote trigger or a wired remote trigger, and you can use this to help you to set the focus as well as to start and stop your recordings. So I guess it really comes down to how important is the shot for you when you're filming with your G85. In the end, it's up to you if you want to rely on the autofocus to get you by. But there is always the possibility lurking that it could pulse at the unforeseen moment, and that could wreck a moment in time that you could never get back. I think for the most part, I'm going to continue to set my focus manually with the tap to focus feature like I mentioned earlier, but it is nice to know that the autofocus performance from the Sigma f1.4 is fairly reliable on a G85 and potentially could be used if I was ever in a pinch. But let's face it, that would have to be a really big pinch. If you want to check out some more videos on the G85, you could hit up this playlist right here, or you could check out this video for one that YouTube thinks you might like, and I'll see you over there. Thanks for watching.